Oh, I even messed that up. Here, we'll try that again. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Facebook Live, and welcome to my talk about 10,000 easy ways to market your book. And there might be a little bit that's tongue-in-cheek there. I'm not quite sure, there might be. But even, everywhere there must be a cute bear somewhere reading a book. And doesn't that just make you want to buy more books? So that's what I'll be talking about today, and just talking about the idea of selling, and which is not something we're really used to as authors, as artists, as creators. And I do want to say, though, thank you very much to CANSCAIP Saskatchewan for supporting this and for having this idea of this presentation. Thank you to Alice Kuipers, who is now my camera woman and doing all the work in the background there to make sure that this runs smoothly. And I am going to do kind of an awkward thing right now is, well, first off, I want you to ask me a few questions while I'm talking, and Ali will pass them on to me, and I will attempt to answer them in the wisest way possible. But I also want to share this to my other pages, and there's no easy way to do that, at least that I know of, without just, me reaching down and looking at my laptop and not paying attention to you. And I'm very sorry that I'm not paying attention to you. But I did, as you notice, I wore my Prairie Proud t-shirt because it's CANSCAIP Saskatchewan. So, and for those who don't know, CANSCAIP stands for Canadian Author Illustrators. Oh, now I might not even CAIN, Illustrators, Writers and Performers. Now I've already messed that up, but it's a wonderful organization. I've been in the organization for, I think, probably 20 years, so that's kind of a crazy amount. So I'm just there once again. I interrupt myself sharing my pages, and so yes, I will be talking about 10,000 easy ways to market your book, and of course there won't be 10,000 total. But I'm going to talk about the things that kind of work for me and kind of the idea behind marketing. There, I will pause to do this. There we go. There, I'm officially done that, and I'm in the odd position of seeing myself about 5 seconds behind. Please, when you're not asking, please ask questions, but also please share. You can see at the bottom where this little video of me is playing, you can see at the bottom there's a share button. If you think there are people who are your friends or family who would be interested in this, please share it, because then they'll be able to watch it live. And even if they don't watch it live, they can watch it later. It'll be kind of saved for them. This video, both the one that Alice just finished just a few minutes ago and the one that I'm doing right now, will be on my Facebook page, but it will be uploaded onto YouTube for both Ellie and I, and also onto the CANSCAIP Saskatchewan YouTube website. So it'll be archived, you can watch it, and if there are any nuggets of wisdom, you can find them there. You can watch it over and over again and make fun of the parts that I already made a mistake, make fun of the mistakes that I make. And I'm looking forward to that. I do want to point out too that notice I am not afraid to wear a tuxedo if it's going to sell a book. I will gladly wear a tuxedo to sell a book. But the presentation, this whole presentation, is available at arthurslade.com/CAN, which is standing for CANSCAIP, short for CANSCAIP. And so if you go to to my website, you can download a PDF. And it will have everything that I'm talking about here, all the images you see, including, the cute little dogs reading books and things like that. But every one of the links, and this is the important part, every link on that PDF is clickable. And so that means that you can just get the PDF. Instead of writing everything down or going, what did he say? You can get the PDF, you can click on the link and go to the website that I'm talking about. So, arthurslade.com/CAN. So I guess the first thing I want to do is give you permission to say that it is okay to sell books. That's I know that as writers, we spend so much time creating our work, and sometimes it's a year, sometimes it's 3 or 4 years, and it's so hard to think of them as saleable objects. We don't, I mean, obviously we like to see them in stores, especially when the cover is face out. But we tend to, as the writers, we tend to not really, we don't really want to push them on people. And I don't think we should push them on people. But there's also this kind of shyness in a way of saying, you know, I kind of maybe wrote this book and maybe you might like it kind of thing. And I guess I want people to feel that it is okay. This is the way I look at a book. If I've spent a year writing a book and I've put my whole heart into it, I've done all this research, I've made it the best story possible, then in many ways that book is a gift. It's something that's going to enrich somebody else's life, you know. And so I have this lovely picture of these sunglasses and of these books out on the beach, and that's what I want you to think about. You're not, you know, you're not forcing somebody to read this horrible book, because of course you created it and it's wonderful. What you're doing is you're giving them this kind of escape from life. You're sending them to the beach, or, you know, to some science fiction landscape, whatever type of book you've written, that's where you're sending them. And that's the gift part of it. And it's okay if they pay money for it. That's totally fine, because we live in a mercantile society. That's how we make money. That's how you get to write more books. That's how readers get to read more books, is if we get paid for them. So it's okay to sell them. It's just that we don't want to become, you know, the pushy salesman. We just want to inform people, and we want to share these stories that we've created. So that's kind of my thinking in the background when I think about sales, because sales even sounds like a dirty word, but that's what I'm thinking about is, you know, there are people out there who are going to really love this book. And I'm sure you've all had that experience where somebody comes up and they've read your book, and you know, whether it's someone you're related to or someone you've never met before, and they just come up and they go, I can't believe it, this book just speaks to me. It's you know, as if you were writing directly to me. And that's what we're aiming at. That's why we write like this, and that's why we need to be paid for it, so that we can continue to create those books. So that's enough. I won't preach any more about that. Oh, I probably will partway through. The other thing I want to talk about, and I want you to kind of think about while I'm doing this talk, is a sales concept which is called 7 touches. And it's what that means is anytime you want to sell an object, like say it's a car or a pair of shoes or a perfume or a book. Of course, books are nice to sell. People should buy them, especially at Christmas time. Oh, sorry. It's going off on a tangent there. But 7 touches means that often it takes 7 times that where people have to hear about something before they'll go out and purchase it. And when I first read about this, I was actually doing a Kickstarter campaign for a graphic novel that I wanted to create. And I thought, that's crazy. There's no way that people need to hear about something 7 times before they'll go out and buy it. I mean, maybe once or twice, you know, 3 times. But what I learned in that whole Kickstarter process is that you really do have to tell people 7 times. That they do, that they weren't, when we first announced the Kickstarter project, I thought, oh, everybody's just going to come rushing. But they didn't. And they didn't come rushing at the 2nd time, you know, we mentioned it, and the 3rd time. And it really wasn't until near the end, until there's kind of this snowball of them seeing something on Facebook, seeing something on Twitter, hearing a friend talk about it. So those 7, each one of those are the different touches, the different times they've been reminded about it. And then they've decided, okay, I'm going to make this purchase now. I finally have time. And the reason for that is that, I mean, we're busy people. All of us. Netflix, of course, is taking up far too much time. But we have, you know, we have lives. We have children to look after. We have family. We have all sorts of things to do. You know, mow the lawn, which I have to do later today. But all those things kind of get in the way of us going to buy this thing we want. And so that's the same with a book. When you mention your book on Facebook and nobody goes and buys it right away, that's okay, because that's really only the first time it's been mentioned. And then if those same people see it later on Twitter, or they see it in the bookstore, at one of those times, if it's something they're interested in, it will be the right time for them to go out and buy it. So that's why I think that concept of needing to kind of tell people 7 times, I'm not saying you go up and shout in there, you know, grab them by the lapels and go, buy my book, and say it 7 times, and then they all just kind of freak out and call the police. What I mean is that it's more of kind of a gentle reminder. It's more of them encountering it kind of in the background. If they're going, scrolling through Facebook, and they see you posted something about how you did this wonderful research about riding horses for your book that has a horse as a main character, and they'll go, oh, that reminds me, my friend wrote a book, and then they'll see something else later that you tweeted, and those things gradually build up until they go out and they're in the right place, right time, and right frame of mind to purchase that wonderful book you've created. So that's the whole concept of 7 touches, and it's just something I want you to think about while I'm talking about different ways to reach out to the public. Now, I post a lot on social media. In fact, I probably post too much, and I try not to have it take over my life, which is really important. But here are some of the just kind of general suggestions that I have for posting on any social media. The first is a simple and short message is usually best, and that's partly because we're busy these days and people don't have time to read long, posts. They can get a lot of great feedback, but in general, a short message is best and clear. It has to be concise and clear. If you can include an eye-catching photo that accents the topic, that's especially helpful on Facebook and more so now on Twitter, because now you can see images when you're on Twitter, depending on how you're looking at Twitter. And another thing is that you should ask yourself, is there a call to action? And that means, click the link or buy the book. And those are, the call to actions are, again, that's kind of a sales tactic, and they sound kind of cheesy, right? It's like, buy this car, go down to the store and pull out your Visa card. Whatever the call to action is, they do sound cheesy, except they actually work. And there have been studies, and I've read these studies, and if you have the exact same post, and one of them says, click this link, and the other one is exactly the same, looks wonderfully interesting, but it doesn't say click this link, you will have a much higher percentage click on the link. And people just need that one more kind of step. So it's important to look to see if there's a call to action. I don't mean necessarily that it has to be buy my book every time, but just that it's something that you tell them what to do, or at least suggest it strongly, and then there's a much likelier chance that they'll do it, and then they'll be rewarded when they find that wonderful book of yours. The other thing is to be conversational, to remember that when you're on social media, it really is a conversation that you can go back and forth. You can talk about your favorite books, and just to not feel kind of constricted in what you're saying. Sometimes people feel like, well, I have to post something really, really smart, and if you read my posts, you'll find out that very, very few of my posts are smart. Well, okay, maybe none. But, if you're conversational, just like you are in real life, then I think that comes across. And the other question to ask is the post you, and are you the post? Which sounds very zen. It's like my mind is expanding right now while I think of it. But what I really mean by that is, does the post represent who you are, what kind of things you're interested in, or is it something that has nothing to do with you? But also, is the post something your audience will enjoy, and the audience kind of sees, would identify with you? And so that's just something that I'm thinking about in the background too whenever I post something. So I tend not to post about zebras dancing or anything like that, because that's not something I'm interested in, nor have I ever seen it. So that's not something that I would post about. In fact, I don't even know if that really exists. I'm going to talk about Twitter. Does not make me sound like a really old person. Twitter, of course, I know how to say it properly. And this is my Twitter page. In fact, this is Twitter. I took this little screen capture this morning, and just to kind of give you an idea, you can see that I've tweeted 19.8 thousand times, which means that I could have written 2 books probably in the space of time that I was tweeting, which is actually really depressing, but don't think about that too long. And you can see that I have about 15,000 followers. Now I'm following 13,000, so that doesn't mean I'm really popular, but it means that a certain percentage of those people will see whatever it is that I tweet. And, other than that, you can say, oh, today at 1 p.m., tune into my Facebook page to watch Facebook Live. So there I am promoting my tweet, and this is very meta. It's a very meta moment now to see this. And so this is kind of what my Twitter page looks like if somebody were to go to it. Twitter is interesting to me because it's more of a sharing culture in some ways than Facebook. It's changed slightly, but what I mean by that is that if you post something on Twitter and people like it, they're more likely to retweet it. Whereas if you're on Facebook and you post something, people are more likely to like something or love it as opposed to share it. Now that's changed slightly on Twitter, because now on Twitter you can put a little heart on things, and that's an easier thing to do than to retweet it. But one of the goals is to get people to retweet, because then your tweet goes out to this audience. The depressing part about Twitter, and this applies to Facebook too, I'll get into that a bit later, is that there is a low engagement rate. And that means they call it organic reach sometimes. And what that means is when you tweet something, you can maybe not see this number here, but it's 5%. Only 5% of people who are following you will see it on average. And that's because Twitter has kind of played around with its algorithms so that only a certain percentage will see it, but also because people are following all these other people. So there's all this other kind of competition. So if you look at how I said there's 15,000 people following me and you think, wow, that's a great number. But if I just tweet something that doesn't go viral or anything, only about 755 of those people will see it. And of those 755, only maybe about 30 will react to it. Maybe only 3 will make comments. So that's kind of depressing in a way when you think you can really reach out with Twitter, but it's only going to 5%. And it's something to keep in mind with any of the social media, that not everybody is seeing it. They're all busy looking at all sorts of other things. What that means, though, to me, is don't be afraid to repeat things. So if you have on a book launch and you tweet something first thing in the morning, say, today's the day my book is out, please go to this, this website, you can tweet a similar thing about 2 hours later, and you can tweet it a few hours after that. And most people, that won't annoy most people on Twitter, because they're looking at so many other things that it just kind of will add to what they're reading, and there's a higher chance that they'll see it. It doesn't work the same with Facebook. You don't want to post things over and over again. But here on Twitter, the people, because they're only seeing 5%, that means you can tweet something 2 or 3 times, and people don't seem to mind. It's kind of part of Twitter's culture. So that's a bit of an introduction to Twitter, and I do want to tell you, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. I will answer them live on air. I might even say your name, who knows. And also, please feel free to share this if there's anybody else that you think might want to hear this great wisdom about selling books. But so that's, when I think about Twitter and I think about posting, I do know that you're not reaching all those people. But I look to find a tweet that will reach out, that will kind of get beyond the boundaries of my own followers. And I'll give you an example. Probably my most retweeted tweet was something I thought was clever, was "You're so vain, I bet you think this tweet is about you." And people, they give them a chuckle, and they retweeted that. And that didn't sell any books, but it got people, if people were interested, they started following me, and they said, oh, maybe he has a sense of humor, maybe his books are funny. They're not, people die all the time, but they might, they might follow me anyway. And so that was, I think that was good. Plus, it's nice to get that kind of immediate reward, because as you know, we all spend so long creating our books. It's nice to get an immediate reward on social media where somebody goes, yeah, what you just did, that was funny, I'm going to retweet it. See, that's all it takes to make me happy, is to just have somebody retweet my work. I have an example here of a recent tweet. I guess this is back in April, and it's actually kind of it's a very straight ahead, almost boring tweet. The tweet is, hole accidentally cut in UK museum floor reveals stairs to hidden tomb of the archbishops. Now, that sounds interesting to me. It was just a news item. I was reading it. I thought it sounds almost like a start of a novel or a movie, like that Da Vinci movie. That could almost fit in with that. And so when I tweeted it, there was a good reaction to it, in the sense that it had 604 impressions, 13 people clicked on it and watched it. So when you think that only about 700 people would read it on my Twitter feed, 603 is pretty good. And there were also the retweets, so there are 3 retweets, and that meant it got out to a few other people. Now, that didn't take me any time at all. It's just, I happened to be reading the article, I pressed the button to retweet it, and where it was helpful to me is it lets people know that, hey, this is the kind of thing I like to read. This is probably the kind of thing you'd like to read. And so you hope that they'll continue to follow you if you keep finding information that they will find interesting. And that's one of my big goals in social media, is to be a sharer. It's not so much about just getting people to read my books or buy my books. That's really in many ways not at the bottom of the list, but it's more important that I reach out, make contact, find people who I think are interesting, and become friends with them and share this kind of information with them. Now, Facebook has more than 1 billion people. I should have looked it up. I think they're edging up near 2 billion. But once you're over 1 billion, what's the point of even counting anymore? It's too big of a number. And all those people, they're either sharing pictures of their latest meals or their pets or whatever's happening. And that's the kind of, it's important to realize that's what you're competing against when you're trying to get information across to people. Is there's all these other things that they can look at. But Facebook obviously is a giant, especially in the field of social media. It is the biggest place for everybody, most everybody. Whenever I go to a room and give a talk on social media, at least 90% of the people there are on Facebook. And so that means it's a really powerful place for us to talk about writing and for us to meet other writers and to share information about our books. Now, the Facebook personal page is, I don't want to get into too much detail other than the personal page is like, this is me, the real Arthur Slade, and it's a really powerful page for communications. It's something that once I set it up, you can see that I have, and this isn't bragging, I have about 5,000 friends. The reason I have 5,000 friends is because I realized that's the most you can get is 5,000. After that, it stops. And so I went out and followed and became friends with all these people who I knew were liked writing or were librarians or were readers, and would follow some of their friends just as a goal to get to 5,000, because I knew it wouldn't kind of happen naturally for me, that it would take a really long time, and I guess I was impatient. So that's why I have so many friends. That's not a real sign of my popularity. But if I go through the list, because every once in a while I think, I should maybe cut some of these people out so I can add somebody else I like. And I'm surprised at how far down I have to go before there's somebody that I don't recognize, or for who haven't used their profile for 3 or 4 years. So the personal page, I don't think of it so much as a place to sell. It's what's important to me is it's a really great place to communicate with other writers, to communicate with my family. Mostly I just post about writing or what's going on in my life. It's not a direct kind of to my family kind of page. It's important, again, to be a sharer. Like anything with Facebook, it's really time consuming. It just, anytime you look at Facebook, I don't know how many times I've been researching something and think, I better check that thing on Facebook, and then I'm gone for 20 minutes. And that's 20 minutes of writing time. And so I really try not to fall into that vortex very often. But the thing about Facebook is that you really do create real relationships. And that's one of the things about social media is I've been talking about there's 1 billion people, that there's 15,000 people on Twitter that are following me, and there's 5,000 on Facebook, that are my friends. But that's not the important thing. We often look at Facebook as this giant kind of ocean that we're talking to all these people at once. But what we're really doing on Facebook and on Twitter is we're talking to individuals. And you can reach out to the masses every once in a while if something goes viral. There's always that possibility. But to me, Facebook is really about cultivating friendships, finding people who have a similar interest, and also finding people who like your writing and who react positively to it and will share with their friends. All of that is all really helpful to your career. And so I really see Facebook more as one-on-one relationships, as me talking to this individual, more so than I would see it as this massive ocean that I'm trying to yell at, because they're all doing something else. They're bouncing balls on the beach or whatever it is they're doing for fun. And another powerful thing about Facebook is that there are all sorts of groups that you can join. And for example, I'm big into self-publishing these days, and I'm in several different groups about self-publishing. There are groups about steampunk that I join. So any kind of interest you have, they can be really helpful. And I'm not so much thinking about selling books as to get information, to learn more. I'll join a group For example, I'm writing a book set in the Roman Empire, so I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to look for a group that has people who are, I can only put it this way, geeks about the Roman Empire. And those are the kind of people you want to meet, because you never know what you're going to find out from them. They can be incredibly helpful for you in the creation of whatever it is you're creating. You can find out all this interesting information. So groups, again, are a really powerful part of Facebook. It does get hard to keep track. I've joined far too many groups, and now it's hard to keep track of them all. But I do find them, they're one of the great things about Facebook. This is the Facebook page. Way back when Facebook started, they called it the like page, or no, the fan page, but I think people felt uncomfortable, and then it became the like page, and now they just call it the page, which is, this just represents Arthur the writer, not so much Arthur the person, but this is, the people who come to this page are people who are interested in my writing. And it's not as interactive as a Facebook, your personal page. It's not as easy to communicate with people. People can send you messages and you can reply, but it's harder to kind of go around the internet as this page. It's much easier with the personal page. Again, it has a 6.5% organic reach, which means that only 6.5% of the people who are following me or like me will actually see a post. So here I have 2,526 likes. One of them is, I should point out, my Auntie Eva. She's right there. her picture came up. So, hi, Auntie Eva. But so I have these likes, and you'd think if I posted to them, they would all see it. But only 6.5% of them will see it, because Facebook doesn't want everybody to see it. They want you to pay for the right to get your information out to all the people who like you. That's how Facebook makes money. That's why Facebook has Facebook advertising. So if I made a post, a typical number of people who would see it are 164.19. So out of these 2,500, only 164 will see it. And it didn't used to be like that. Facebook used to, if you posted, it would go to pretty well everybody who liked you. But Facebook, again, changed those rules because they needed to figure out how to make money. And they're Facebook, they own it, that's their prerogative, and they need to make money, so that makes sense to me. It's just now, in order to reach those people, you have to advertise to them. Facebook, this page is important, because if you're going to do any Facebook advertising, you need to have a Facebook page, like a personal writer's page. Or if you're a band, you would use it as a band. And so you need it to do advertising. It's also helpful because people can sign up for your newsletter. And how do you, the biggest question I probably get is, how do you get people onto your fan page? And the way I did that is, remember back when I said I had 5,000 people following me on my personal page? Well, I asked all 5,000 of those people to go and like my fan page, or my Facebook page, my Arthur the author page. And out of those 5,000 people, there were, what's the number right here, 1,000 of them. So about 1/5 of them said, oh, hey, yeah, we like you enough that we'll go and like your page. And so that was a way of increasing the number of people on this page. It also meant to me that I know that the people who like this page are people who are directly interested in my writing. They're not necessarily family members, although my Aunt Eva, I should point out again, but they are people who like my writing, which means when I post something here, I am more likely to post something about writing for them. So that's a little bit about how Facebook page works. And I have a couple of examples of really quick post that I did. I was working as the writer in residence at the library, and I saw this, the library has been evacuated, do not enter sign. So as a joke, I put, because of zombies on it. And I used Instagram to post, I'm out of here, and post this picture. All of that took me less than a minute, and it went out to Twitter and Facebook and to other feeds. And again, this doesn't sell a book, but what it does is sells my sense of humor, lets people know that, because if they click on it, they'll find out that I'm the writer in residence, or I was the writer in residence. I'm all done now. And so don't send me any more manuscripts. But it's just a really quick way of just kind of entertaining people for a second. And that's kind of part of the payback that I want to give people for taking time to come and look at my page. So that was a really easy post. this is an example of a post on my page that is really direct. I'm trying to sell them my Amber Fang book. And this says, Amber Fang, biting humor, action adventure. It's available in ebook. It just states everything plainly. And actually, I don't even know if I put a call to action here. I should have put click this link. But this is just I don't do this every time I post, but maybe every 10th time I'll post something that's directly saying, you can go and buy these books. And only a few people will click on it, but one or two every once in a while will buy it. And that just kind of helps, the sales go up. And so it doesn't offend people. This one, like 328 people actually read it. So that's a good, that's a good sign. I wasn't able to figure out how many people actually bought from it. But people don't get offended if you post like that once in a while. It's more so if you post like that all the time that people get tired of seeing the post. Well, right now, unless you're watching this later on YouTube, we're watching Facebook Live, this is such an interesting and powerful thing, powerful way you can use Facebook to get your information out. And this is a Facebook Live that I did when I was at the Saskatoon Public Library. And you can see over 1,340 people watched that. And so all you need is a camera, and sometimes it's good to have somebody interview you, but you can, if you're comfortable, you can speak directly to the camera, and you can do a book launch. You can, I watched this one really interesting live video where this woman was launching her book, but she was silent the whole time, and she just held up placards that said, this is my book, this is what it's about, go here, do this. And the way that it's so helpful is that is because Facebook doesn't charge you for this, so it's a great way to reach. And hi, I want to hello. I'm going to keep on going though, but it's nice to chat. So this is really good because, again, it doesn't cost you money, and it gets your name out there. And if you think of you're doing an event where you're launching your book live at a bookstore, you could also turn on Facebook Live, and you could have your friends from around the country be watching you do your reading, that sort of thing. So it's really, really powerful that way. And so it's great for social outreach, great for book launches, great for entertainment because you are entertaining people, and people like to be entertained. And also, probably the most important part is it can be repurposed. And that's something I'm always thinking about in terms of social media is, how can I use this thing again without doing any more work? So once this video is done, the video you're watching now, it's going to be available on my Facebook page, but I'll download it and I'll put it onto YouTube. So that's repurposing it. That's getting it out to another audience without having to do really that much more extra work. So that's one of the things I think about. So Facebook Live, very powerful. I won't get too deeply into Facebook advertising because I feel like you might nod off. Also because it is really complicated. Even just looking at this, which I'm sure you can't even read the writing, that's how complicated it is to kind of set up a Facebook ad. But it is really precise. It is expensive, and I keep using the word powerful, but it is. It's precise in that if you have a book, and I'll use Amber Fang as an example, that is about vampires. The vampire's a librarian, and it has kind of an action-adventure aspect to it. You can find people who are interested in vampires, who like action-adventure. And for example, if I'm releasing an audiobook, which I did of that book, I can put in, do they like Audible? All those things you can find out. And you can tailor your ad, and it'll show up, in the feed right here. And right kind of when they're looking at Facebook, it'll be kind of on the right-hand side, or it'll appear in the middle. And you will find that people will react to that ad. It's just that it costs money. That's the horrible part of it. And it costs American money too. The least you can pay is like $5 a day, but it's often much more than that. I took a course at selfpublishingformula.com for Facebook advertising, and it was extremely helpful. I feel like I know it better than I feel like I understand it, but still I'm still kind of leery of it too because it does cost money, and I want to be sure that I'm getting a return on that money. But if you can figure it out, and if you're and you can get your return on investment, then it is a really, really great instrument to use in selling books. And this is an example of of an ad that I put up. It says best-selling horror author Arthur Slade is giving away both the audiobook and the ebook. I don't often give books away, but I did that because in return for that, them getting the book for free, I was getting their email address and they were joining my newsletter, which meant that there was a good chance that they would buy something else of mine and then pay me back for the ad. And partially too, at the time, if people downloaded the audiobook, I would get paid for that too. So I kind of worked out a formula where I figured out, you can see here, well, you probably can't see it, the number's too small, but I spent $270 and I got 380 people to join my newsletter, so that's a good number. But I ended up actually making somewhere around $300. So basically I got those people for free is what happened. They joined my newsletter, now they're people that I communicate with directly. So that's just an example of how Facebook has used for me, has worked. Facebook advertising has worked for me. And the audiences you can use, when you have audiences on your like page, or you have an email newsletter audience, you can actually take that audience and you can duplicate them, and they are people you can advertise directly to, or people like them. I see there's a question.
Jessica Bergman would like to know, and it's a great question, if you get published through a traditional publisher, will they do the marketing for you?
Hi, Jessica. You know, will they do the marketing for you? That's, you could hear me laugh when I heard the question. They will and they won't. They tend to, the way publishing works is they will do the, I was about to say the least amount possible. That's not quite correct. They will market it. They will get into bookstores for you. If it's a book they think is really going to fly, then they will spend more money on it, and they'll get it so that you have to pay more money, so it's in the corner of the store when you walk in. You have to pay more money for that position. So they'll pay for that if they think it's going to sell. And I think there was a really good kind of explanation of how publishing works. And it was by someone named Tim Grahl, and he explained that when someone publishes your book, they're actually publishing 11, 12, 13 more books like yours. And what they do is they throw them all up against the wall in a way, and whichever one becomes popular is the one that the advertising money tends to go to. So you kind of have these two needles to get through if you're going to go through the eye of the needle. You have to go and you have to get published, and then you have to get your publisher to support you fully. Now, by that I mean, if your book is the one that becomes popular, then they're going to throw lots of money at it. It's going to get all the advertising, and it's going to sell lots of copies. But all those other ones, they might just sell a medium amount of copies, and they will get a medium amount of advertising. And that just seems to me, and publishers can correct me if they want, but that seems to me how that business works. So they don't pay for, won't necessarily buy Facebook advertising for you. That's something you'd have to do on your own. They might pay for your book launch. Or they might go half and half for a book launch, or they might pay for your hotel room, but they don't pay for everything. And you do, if you're with a large enough publisher, have a publicist, but the publicist again doesn't necessarily. I mean, the publicist has 12 other authors that he or she is dealing with, so it's not kind of a full-time job. So yes, they will pay for some of this. Sometimes they'll pay for all of it. It really depends on where you land in their marketing scheme, if I can put it that way. So, good question. Thank you, Jessica. I think that's about all that I'll explain about Facebook advertising, because again, it is rather complicated, and I might also. This is just an example. This is an example of a straight ahead kind of ad where I put a quote in from somebody who had heard the audiobook of Dust, and the quote says, "Knowing that the author is the narrator is great because he made me feel that the characters were real." So that's kind of social proof that someone liked the audiobook that I voiced. And so if I put that out there, then people are more likely to believe it. If I wrote that, or my mom said, "This is a really great audiobook, I voiced it, you'll love it," then that doesn't, that's not going to prove to people that it's good. But if somebody from outside, my family, posts that and I'm able to quote it, then that's a very helpful way to let people know about the book. And I have the link, and if they're interested, they'll go and click on it. I'll just briefly want to mention Instagram, because Instagram I use Not so much for advertising. I know that some people are able to use it well to promote their books. Maybe I just don't take nice enough pictures to do that. Instagram is just really handy because whenever I take a picture, including the one that I took of the library zombies, then that I just have to click a button and it will be sent to Twitter and to Facebook and I think also Tumblr, just without me having to do any extra work. So that's why I like Instagram. Plus, it is kind of fun to go through and see what other photos people are saying are making, are putting up on Instagram. So I just want to point out that it is a helpful thing to use in terms of getting your information out. For me, it's all about barriers. What's the easiest way to get something across to people? If there's any way of posting that's going to slow me down, if I have to like fill out a couple forms or whatever it is, I won't do it. But with Instagram, I know how it works. I know if I take the picture, I can put it, I can just click and I make 2 selections and it'll go to Facebook and Twitter and I'm done. And it's all done in less than 30 seconds. And to me, that means I'll post a bit more. I'll get a bit more people interested in my work or whatever it is I'm posting about. And there's no barrier to that. And I also want to mention a way of, I've been talking about Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr and all these other social medias. I've only used this a couple of times, but it's to me it's really, one of the questions is how do we get all these different people to tweet and to retweet and to let other people know about your work? Well, there isn't a somewhat easy way to do it. And you can go to Thunderclap or Head Talker, and both of those are clickable links on the PDF. So if you go to I've only used Head Talker, but they both kind of work the same. What happens is you put up a page. So this was for a launch of my book, Modo Mission Clockwork, which was a reworking of the Hunchback Assignments. I was relaunching it in the States. And I put up a Head Talker page. And I asked my friends, who were also fellow writers or even people who were fans, to post about it on Twitter and Facebook. But instead of them all posting right away, they just go to Head Talker, they click on this link, and it sends a message to their Twitter so that on this day, at this time, the tweet will come out or the Facebook post. And they don't have to remember to post on the day that your book comes out or anything like that. This is a way of getting that information out from a whole group of people. You can see that 44 people supported it, 971,000 people maybe saw it. That's just, we're not sure what the percentage is. And it just got the word out, and I believe it did help sell more copies. I see there's another question.
Brian James Hildebrand says, piggybacking on Jessica's question, I've read recently that publishers will choose which books to publish and put heavy promotion into based on how large the author's social media platform currently is. Do you have any thoughts on that? I've personally read that. I don't know. Sometimes I know that it is important to them that you understand social media. And Random House, which is one of the authors I publish with, they actually have a really good program for authors teaching them how to do social media. Again, I'm not sure. Not that many people can get a huge following on Facebook and on Twitter without already being popular, if that makes sense. Or else they're just crazy like me and ask everybody to follow me and try and become their friends and spend my whole life doing that. But so with publishers, I imagine they look at it, but I think that would be kind of one of the things that they would take, but it would probably be lower down the list. This is just my opinion. I don't actually, I don't know what publishers are thinking, but it's, just from what I've been explaining about how Facebook works and Twitter and the small percentage of people, even my Twitter and Facebook following isn't really that gigantic. If you think of how many people I reach, whenever I'm tweeting or putting a status on Facebook. So for publishers, yes, I think they want to know more so than, it would be great if you had great numbers but I think they just want to know that you are social media savvy. That if they say, can you put a post about this? You know how to do that, or you know how to do a blog, or any of the things that you normally do on social media. That's important to them. It makes it easier for their team. Plus, also, kind of in many ways, in publishing, it has fallen more towards the author to get a lot of the social media information out.
because again, like I said, publishers are going in all sorts of different directions, have all these other authors they're supporting. It's hard for them to just concentrate on one unless you're their most popular author. So that's kind of my feeling is it's great to have that kind of following, but they don't necessarily, that's not the main thing. You'd have to have a good book first, because reviews over everything else are what sell books. Another question?
Yolanda Ridge, can you comment on how pre-sales can affect your Amazon rating?
Oh, yes, I will, and I will. And I want to start clicking through things to get to that point. But I will be talking about how pre-sales and sales in general can affect where you end up on Amazon. And in fact, I think I will move ahead. If you want to know more about Thunderclap or Head Talker, just click on the links on the PDF, and you can learn how it works. Oh, look, another puppy. Doesn't that just make you feel good inside? And I do want to point out, these images I'm using are from Pexels.com. So if you go to Pexels.com, these are all free images, and they have also great images you can buy, of course, which is the whole point of the website. But these are really helpful when you're doing presentations, or if you're going to do a social media post, you could put this up. It'll get people's attention, and then they'll buy your horrific book that has vampires in it. Well, that's not a guarantee, by the way. I just kind of a general list here, and is how to be nice to people on the interweb and sell books. And the first is to have fun, to share. I've mentioned that several times. It's really important to share other authors' work, to share information to people, and to share about your own, because we're all learning and we're all supporting each other. If you can find an interesting fact about your book, post about it, but don't talk about your book all the time, because people will get kind of bored about that. Choose your presence. By that I mean, if you're someone who likes politics, then you're welcome to talk about politics. I tend not to, because it tends to turn too many people off, and and for me it leads to you tend to have too many long arguments where you're not changing people's minds anyway. So but it's your idea. Whatever you want your presence to be. Don't worry if you don't post, because people are looking at other things, so they might not even notice you're gone, and when you come back they'll go, oh, you're back, that's great, or where are you gone? And also set a specific time for social media. I try to do all my social media after 11, because that's my best writing time is in the morning. So after 11, that's when I'll do social media. It will look like I'm online all the time, but that's partly because sometimes I have tweets and posts that I programmed the day before to appear at a certain time. In fact, there is a tweet appearing right now, or about 10 minutes ago, no, at the start of this, saying, you're going to see me live on Facebook. So create individual relationships. I talked a bit about that. See Facebook and Twitter as water cooler place for readers. Don't talk about your book all the time. I may have repeated that one. And don't be afraid to brag, though, once in a while, because people do like to hear when a good thing happens. You get a good review, you win an award. They do like to hear that sort of thing. I'm going to skip past Canva, other than if you go to canva.com, you can find out how to make these wonderful images that look really great on your social media. And again, there's a clickable link there. And again, I'm quickly going through, because I'm realizing I'm taking far too long, and I'm not at the most important part, which is email is the best way to promote yourself, to get direct sales from readers. And it is direct one-on-one conversation. Your biggest fans will join your newsletter. They're the people that will really pump you up. I get some lovely emails from my newsletter subscribers just saying, where's the next Amber Fang book, and aren't you going to get it done yet, or how come you're not working harder on it? Well, they don't quite put it that way, but it's really encouraging, and I really am going to get that done soon. Your highest conversion rate, and by that I mean, I was talking about Facebook, 5% or 6% on Facebook and Twitter will see it. Well, on your newsletter, it's 30 up to 100% if you have a really great newsletter, but about 30 to 40% of people who you send an email to will click on it and open it and read it. And that's doesn't sound great, but that's a really good return. And it's also a great place to find beta readers, or what I call ninja readers, who will read your book and do reviews of your book, which is extremely helpful in this day and age, especially since Amazon and Kobo and these other online online markets have such a large part of the market, especially Amazon, as we know. They own a lot of everything, even grocery stores. This is an example of what my newsletter looks like. It's called A Somewhat Clever Newsletter by Arthur Slade. So you kind of get the idea of my personality. And I have a little story about, when I was asking my prom date out, what it felt like and how that actually feels almost the same as when you send your manuscript to your editor and you're waiting to hear back from them and find out what they think of it. So my newsletter has a bit of personal stuff. It'll have a link to something that I hope people will be interested in buying, but also it shares information about something that I'm doing, that I'm using. In my last newsletter, actually it just came out today, I talk about the New York Times virtual reality app. It's an amazing app where you can look all around in all these different directions in Antarctica or at Mecca. And for me as a writer, it's just, wow, I feel like I'm really in these places. So that's the kind of information I share on my newsletter. And in order to get subscribers, often you can have a giveaway as a reward, which Cypress does a lovely job of giving away a class, which is by the way, I highly recommend it. And so that gets people to sign up and it gives them something in return. I give away my short stories because, it's a collection of short stories, so I don't want to give away a whole novel. I'm considering actually writing some shorter novels to give away, to give them kind of ideas of the types of things I write. People to add to your newsletter, your friends, your family. You can use sign-up sheets on Facebook and on your website. I mentioned earlier that I use Facebook advertising. You can also go to instafreebie.com, and that's a website I recommend checking out, where they actually get people to join your newsletter by giving away a couple sample chapters from your book or your whole book. And I've had thousands of people join my newsletter through InstaFreebie, and they've been really good readers, really good, really, really interesting people to communicate with, but also they have been good readers in the sense that they're reading my newsletters, and I'm happy about that. There are also contests. In fact, I have a contest right now. If you go and look on my Facebook page, you'll see it, or I think there'll be a post tomorrow about it. And again, sign-up forms on your website and email links are really great ways to get people to subscribe to your newsletter. I mentioned that newsletters, here's a nice little card with a ninja, Donna, one of my readers. Newsletters are great for beta readers because they will read your book before it comes out, sometimes find mistakes in it, which is really helpful, and also put up reviews for you. They're an advertising pool in the sense that Facebook you can actually upload email addresses to Facebook, and then you can, from there, they will find a whole different group of people who are like them, and you can advertise directly to them. And I think I'm just seeing that it's 2:58. I'm going to go a little bit over time. We started a little bit late, so because I'm just about done here, but I want to get to the part about Amazon and the algorithms and that sort of thing. So again, the Ninja Readers are kind of I want to say the best of the best, but they're people who are really helpful in terms of getting reviews out, and helpful just in being really nice to you in terms of reading your book. There's a link here again if you download the PDF. Tim Grawl, Nick Stevenson, Mark Dawson, these are all people who I've found have really good information about newsletters, about Facebook advertising. And I also have a list of programs that you could use. I use MailJet, the bottom one here, but it's a little complicated. MailChimp is probably the most popular and is kind of straight ahead, and most people use that one. So if you're to take it all, put this all together, and I'll try to talk through this without too quickly, but when to take this all together, I'll kind of show how it worked when I self-published this book, Amber Fang. You can see it's librarian, assassin, vampire. So you can kind of get the idea of what it's about. Plus, there's blood on the cover. Isn't that gross? And when I self-published it, again, this looks kind of complex, but what this is my launch week. And so on the first day, actually a few days before it actually came out, I sent out to my newsletter and said, please, you might be interested that I have a new book coming out. It's called Amber Fang. So I got them kind of interested in it. On the 20th of October, this is what's called a soft launch. So I didn't tell people it was out, but I did tell my Ninja readers that it was out, and they all put their reviews up. So that meant almost immediately there were about 30 reviews of Amber Fang. so that when people started coming to look at the book, they already had this social proof that it was a good book. I think on average it got 4.2 out of 5 stars. So that's a pretty good ranking. And I started buying ads on Facebook and on different newsletters on each day, kind of building up, because the way the algorithm works on Amazon, again, could talk for an hour about that, is Amazon doesn't reward you. If you have a big spike, if you sell 1,000 copies and then the next day you sell 0, Amazon goes, you're not building. What Amazon likes is if your sales build like this. And then they go, oh, you're someone we kind of like. We like the fact that you're kind of consistent. And their algorithm kind of decides to put you higher than you normally would go if your sales build slowly. So that's what this was attempting to do, is that each day there were ads, and then these ads with newsletters about vampires and newsletters for people who like to read books that are action-adventure books. And then on the 25th, which was a Tuesday, that went out to my newsletter. And so there were about 4,000 people at that time who got it, who got the newsletter, and then probably about 400 or 500 of them bought the book, within the next couple days. And I had it specifically at a lower price. I think it was actually even 99 cents at that point, just because I wanted to go higher in the rankings. And to reward them, it was only going to be 99 cents for 2 days. The price was going up to $2.99. So the day after. So that meant that they would buy the book a bit more quicker. And they didn't want to, have to spend more money for the book, but that meant that it went up in the ranking and stayed up there. So that when I did put the price up to $2.99, which again doesn't sound like much, but for an ebook you're making $2.04. It stayed at that ranking, and I was still selling the same number of copies than I was when it was 99 cents, but I was being paid more money, which is, I like that for some reason. I like being paid more money, and then it just kind of continued on from there. So in the first month, the book sold 839 copies in total, and it sold mostly on Amazon, almost 700 of those copies on Amazon, and the rest were either paperback books or Takobo iBooks and the other vendors. And so you can see how big Amazon's slice is. They are a big part of the market. And these are the up-to-the-date results. There were so far it sold 2,200 copies, 2,200 ebooks, 101 paperbacks, and 102 audiobooks. And so that's 2,400 in total. So for me, that was a really good payoff. I learned lots about how the algorithm in Amazon works. And if I could just write a bit faster, I think I would my next book would sell more, and the book after that would sell more. And each time you put out a book, it means your first book starts to go up the rankings again too. So it's all helpful. And I think that's what I have one more. I think I will leave this for you to read if you download the PDF, because it kind of just goes over everything that I've been speaking about. And I will come to the end of the presentation. If there are any more questions, I will answer them. Or Ellie, if you have a few questions, you're welcome to ask.
I think my main question is, where do you find the most useful investment of your time to be?
So the question is, where do I find the most useful investment of my time? Well, the obvious answer to me is writing, of course, but in terms of everything I've been showing you is probably overwhelming in many ways. There's just so many different things you can do, and again, kind of my advice would be to pick one thing that is interesting to you and follow that. So if you're really good at Facebook, then pick Facebook. Or if you really like being on Twitter, pick Twitter. Don't try and do all of them. Only crazy people like me try and do all of them. I do it because I'm socially a geek and I want to understand how all this works. And so that's why I've invested so much time in it. And I think I will be paid back for that time. But I really would suggest to people that to not, to go barging into all of them at once, but pick one and get good at it and kind of understand how it works for you. And in many ways, only do it if it makes you happy. I know that we want to sell books, and that's what this is about. But also, there's nothing more painful than going onto Facebook and feeling like you have to create something really interesting. That's not what it's about to me. All these things I do because I have a joy of creating, both of trying to get people understanding why people buy books, but also have this joy of just entertaining people. So those are the two things that I'm kind of working on. So I think we have come to the end. Thank you very much for the questions. Thank you to everybody for sharing. Thank you to CANSCAIP Saskatchewan for providing both of our presentations. This will be available on YouTube, and it will be on Facebook too, so you can get the information there. And like I said, you can also download the link to the PDF. And yeah, thank you very much for listening, everybody. Take care. And I think, you know what? Even though this is supposed to be at the beginning, I did it wrong at the start. So I will say goodbye.